Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'm going to be playing the Beastmen against the Warriors of Chaos, so definitely a Chaos family feud. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one, and let's get right into the army composition. So in my front line, I kind of have a mixture of Goreherds with shields. Now I know the shields aren't terribly pertinent against the Warriors of Chaos, though. In a few builds, I actually have seen the Master Marauder Horsemen used, so the shields aren't completely useless, but on that note, these Goreherds, as opposed to their non-shielded variant, do have quite a bit higher melee stats, or defensive stats, I should say. So their melee defense is actually 32, where I believe on their equivalent it's in the 20s somewhere, in the low 20s. So these guys can hold up a little bit longer against Chaos Warriors and, the other frontliners, and, generally do okay for you. So I kind of have them mixed in an alternating fashion here. So I have the Goreherds with shields and then Bestigors. So Bestigors is pretty good against Chaos. They actually have really, really high combat stats in terms of their offensive capabilities. So they have 40 weapon strength, they have 39 melee attack when buffed, and they have a really nice charge bonus as it pertains to infantry with 32. And just for reference, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these guys. So the Chaos Marauders here have a charge bonus of 16. Let's see, the Aspiring Champions are 26 themselves, and I think they have some Chosen back here. So these Chosen with Halberds, of course. Halberdiers generally won't have a great charge bonus, but only at 12. So just to put it in perspective, their charge bonus is pretty solid, and they'll definitely do some really good initial shock damage. One thing to also note is that the Bestigors have a very, very low defensive stats. So their melee defense is actually only 20. Though they are heavily armored, they are going to be taking quite a few hits. So something that I find to be really effective against Chaos is to kind of mix them in with Goreherds. So when we engage in the front line, you guys will probably notice that I'll send the Bestigors in kind of, with these guys and kind of have them stack on top of one another, so that these Goreherds can take, a bit of the beating with their higher melee defense, and then these guys can really benefit from their high combat stats in the front line. So aside from that, I do have a Gorbel here. I have Morker the Shadowgave. Of course, he's probably, well, not probably, he is hands down the best lord available to the Beastmen. The Chaos Mon are quite good in the Chaos matchup, simply because the Warriors of Chaos will often bring Forsaken, because Forsaken can cut through most troops with the exception of Bestigors. They kind of struggle against the armor, but against Goreherds and, pretty much, most units on the Beastmen roster, they can do some serious damage. I mean, even to Morker, who only has 15 armor, they can really, really do some work. So having those Chaos Spawn that can deal with them is very, very helpful. So I do have 3 Gorbels, I believe. I have one here, and there might be another one. I'm not sure if there's a third. If there is, we'll find him throughout the course of the battle. On top of that, I do have 2 Centaurs with great weapons. These guys are a pretty solid choice. They have good combat stats, offensively speaking. 34 weapon strength. They do have really low defensive stats, though. So 20 melee defense, but they have 24 melee attack, and they're very, very fast with 96 move speed. So you can really, really be aggressive with these, split them into 2 separate groups, and it can be very difficult for your opponents to keep up with them. On top of all of that, with 34 weapon strength, even though these Shaggoths over here and Kolek aren't, heavily armored, they can still do some pretty good damage with their charge bonus of 38 and 34 weapon strength. So definitely some solid units there. In conjunction with those, I always like to bring a group of Chaos Warhounds, because when you're able to catch a group with these Centaurs, the Chaos Warhounds are really, really nice for ensuring that they don't slip away. They do apply that poison, which is a pretty substantial move speed debuff, and I'm definitely a huge fan of kind of packing those guys in with the Centaur Goon Squad here. That's pretty much it for my army. Of course, got Morker and kind of a mixed front line here. Because, again, if you do decide to go with like a fodder front line of Goreherds and things like that, you're going to get punished very heavily by Forsaken. However, if you, saturate it with, the Bestigors, they can kind of help deal with the Forsaken and kind of lessen the blow that you're going to take. Whereas if he goes more of an armored approach, the Bestigors will shine, and then these Goreherds will do a pretty good job absorbing that beating for them. As far as my opponent's army go, he has a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth here, which does have an anti-large armor piercing bonus, so very, very good against the Gorbels. He does have some Chaos Warhounds as well, which I like quite a bit, and of course Kolek. So Kolek's really fast, actually. He has 80 move speed. The Shaggoth has 78. So they're actually, not quite as fast as these Centaurs, obviously, but they are faster than Gorbels, so they can chase them down, and definitely will do pretty well here, because these are considered large units. As far as his infantry corps, he has Chaos Marauders mixed in with, so it looks like he has some great weapons mixed in with some standard Chaos Marauders. They are shielded, so they do have higher melee defense, 28 as opposed to 20. So he's kind of doing something similar to what I'm doing here, and kind of saturating different types of units in the front line just to kind of, do the best he can, not knowing, of course, what units I have, preemptively speaking. So let's see. So more Chaos Marauders, and then he has some Forsaken over here. So these Forsaken on the flank are going to do a really good job punishing my Goreherds here. He does have a secondary line of Aspiring Champions here. A Chaos Sorcerer with the Lure of Fire. It looks like he has the Flaming Sword of Ruin and the Piercing Bolts, which I like quite a bit. Chosen with Halberds. Very, very good against Gorbels. These guys... Honestly, I think Halberds in general against the Beastmen are very good. They do well, against... These guys can, hold their own against Bestigors. They can do well against Gorbels. They can deal with my Cav. Just a very dynamic unit, and I definitely like that choice. He does have some Chaos Warriors with Halberds back here, kind of shoring up his back line, and that's about it. So without further ado, let's get right into the action. So right now, the first thing I like to do, in most of these matchups, when I am using cav and my opponent is as well, is kind of draw them out and try and overwhelm their cav. But you don't want to engage too close, because if I were to engage over here, his halberds could simply detach and could really, change the course of that battle. So right now, I do bring my 3 Gorbel Goon Squad, and I actually haven't been bringing, any Lords of Magic with the Beastmen lately. I've just been kind of getting 3 Gorbels, and I think it's been paying off pretty well. But again, Flock of Doom would have been okay against all these Chaos Marauders. So I'm trying to avoid using it because I'm sure it's going to get the nerf stick eventually. But my opponent does engage, but then he kind of turns around to run, but his guys do get caught out a little bit. And some of these Chaos Warhounds are going to get caught by these Centaurs with great weapons. Obviously, they're not designed to kill these small units like that, but they're still able to get a few kills here, which is a nice little beginning to the battle. But my opponent very wisely does detach the Chosen with halberds, as well as his second group of Chaos Warriors with halberds. So it's going to be very, very hard to get through his flank. So a lot of the determining factors of the battle are going to take place in the front line, and I'm definitely going to have some fancy footwork over here to get around. But if I am able to kind of isolate Kolek and the Shaggoth with 3 Gorbels, they will just put these guys in a trash can and just send them back to the Shadow Realm. These guys have 400 plus weapon strength with armor piercing and anti-large. So though the armor piercing isn't great, I mean, it's still going to, the 400 weapon strength is no joke, and they do have an anti-large bonus. So in the front line, you can see the Warriors of Chaos and the Best of War herds have engaged. They do have the Apocalyptic Vision, so that's definitely very nice. It does 16 leadership and 34 melee attack. So they're going to do very, very good against these Aspiring Champions. And the Aspiring Champions without the armor piercing are definitely going to lose this matchup pretty heavily. But man, Aspiring Champions look so freaking cool. So the Chaos Marauders have engaged with the Beastmen here. It's definitely, this is going to be a pretty funny fight here. But he does have the Flaming Sword of Ruin and other magical effects. So his front liners are going to be pretty scary. And over here you can also see he does use a Piercing Bolt. So let's go ahead and watch this right now. Let's get a slow-mo when it comes down. That could be kind of fun, right guys? So you can see it's coming down here and raising some serious havoc. You can see the HP kills of these, not HP kills, the kills against these Gore Herds just going down so fast. And it's pretty good against these lightly armored units, so very well played by my opponents. Essentially, he wavers and just destroys my entire flank. On that same note, I am kind of trying to circle around these halberds. And thankfully, on a positive note, these halberds aren't in the front line, so my Chaos Spawn and my best scores here, just look at the damage they've done. They've destroyed this entire group of Aspiring Champions and have broke them. So very good there, and I am finally able to get around those darn halberds, and I do collapse on these hounds, just trying to finish them off really quickly while they're alone. But unfortunately, his halberds are coming in pretty hard, and I do kind of have my Gorbel zoned out, which is very tough. And his Chaos Warriors with the Lure of Fire were able to push back my Gore Herd. They actually are terrified, so what was causing terror here? It must have been something. It must have been Kolek coming in. And over here, the battle with the best scores, they're doing pretty well, but still, for the most part, that Piercing Bolt was really able to punish my flank over there. But I do have my Goon Squad online right now. You can see the 3 Gorbels coming in. Morker is getting engaged on by the Shaggoth and Kolek, so if they're able to get some square hits in him, that's going to be pretty tough. But these Gorbels are doing well. You can see a nice Lord of the Storm there. It does hit some of his own troops, though, but it does also do some damage to these Centaurs. But I am able to swarm, and now that there's 3 Gorbels on Kolek, you guys are going to see his HP is just going to start tanking so fast. Still, Kolek's no pushover. He does have a Shaggoth here, but a lot of the Beastmen units are coming back from route. And those Shaggoths are pretty resilient with their scaly skin and other defensive capabilities. Also very fast. They can move through your ranks pretty quickly. They still do take a bit of damage considering they have low armor. And Kolek, of course, is having a very, very bad time. The triple Gorbel is just so good at punishing him, because they're almost fast enough to keep up with them, but still, if he's having to run this whole time, he's not going to have as much, time to micro his other units. So one of my Gorbels does get caught up on some halberds here, which was unfortunate, but at this point, Kolek's broken, and if I just keep this Gorbel chasing after him, he should stay off the battlefield, so that was quite nice. Also, the Shaggoth is doing pretty good. It's starting to get saturated with some of these halberds, who are going to do a great job supporting against these Centaurs. Though I do have the Apocalyptic Vision, my troops are still shaken, which is most certainly not good. Morker, however, is in really, really good health. He does have regeneration and poison, and though he doesn't have armor piercing, it's not really going to matter against this Shaggoth. He's going to poison it and do a very, very good job kind of supporting this Gorbel to take it down. So very, very good situation, but man, Morker just gets sent to the Shadow Realm over there. He goes flying, and this Shaggoth is definitely not a pushover. You can see he's starting to get worn down. Some of these Bestigors with their 42 weapon strength are starting to hit on him, so definitely a very, very good situation. No, not hit on him in that way, but they are getting in there. You can see the Halberdiers and the Chosen. Even though the Chosen, are meant against large targets, they're just such beasts. I mean, despite the matchup, they have really good defensive stats. 52 melee defense, and they're just 120 armor. Definitely going to be very, very good here. So you can see the Chosen and Chaos Warriors are starting to push back most of my troops. And he also has this huge blob over here coming, which is very, very scary. So if you look at my Beastmen line, they're all running. I have pretty much nothing left in that regard. But still, the power bar is very, very heavily in my favor, which is quite interesting. You can see I have 190 troops, give or take, to his 315. But, again, Kolek's off the battlefield. The Shaggoth is about to be shaken. And more importantly, Morker is in great shape. He still has his Chaos Spawn charge. I believe he has one more left, so that'll be very good at finishing off these elite troops here. So I'm in pretty good shape. The Gorbles are going to do a good job, and I honestly think once this Shaggoth is gone, and you can also see Kolek, he's somewhere over in the distance, but he has been chased off. You know, the Chaos Spawn obviously will get cut to pieces by halberds, but over the course of this battle, with Morkur here and his poison and, you know, all those other variables, they're going to start to get worn down. And of course, the Gorble is just an absolute monster. You can see him getting in here and some Chosen getting knocked around by these Chaos Spawn. So definitely cannot complain here. Let's go ahead and take a look. So the Shaggoth is now wavering. Its leadership's at 5, and now it's at 2 and -6. So it's going to break here in just a moment, which is really nice. And you can see some of my Gore Herds, you know, 28 models, they're confident, they're coming back. And having that saturation against relatively elite infantry is going to be pretty good. Fortunately for me, my opponent still does have some aspiring champs and some very, very strong units that are probably going to do a pretty good job pushing me off. But let's go ahead and see. I'm pretty sure Morkur does cause fear. Does he? He should. I mean, if he doesn't, I mean, look at that. He's just an absolute monstrosity. You think he would. But anyways, the Chaos Spawn do cause fear. So in a close battle like this, they're going to be pretty good. You can see these Chosen back here. Let's go ahead and take a look. So they are steady. So their leadership is starting to tank because despite the fact that, you know, they do have the numbers, they have lost a lot of substantial units. They lost Kolek's gone, so they have the leadership penalty of their lord having fled the battlefield. On top of that, they did lose that Shaggoth. I believe it did break, or it did get killed, actually. So, you know, again, a lot of things starting to kind of wear in my favor, which is quite good. This Gorble here is taking a bit of damage from the halberds and the aspiring champs, but still Morkur with that regeneration is just tanking this front line, which is really, really good. And that's allowing these Gorbles and other units to really work through these armored troops. You can see some Gore Herds, they just came back from route. I'll definitely micro them back into the battle in just a moment. You can see them coming in. That's definitely going to probably be enough to break these guys because, again, their leadership is starting to simply get low from army losses. And if I'm not mistaken, army losses kind of works in a way like it's a percentage of your army, and I think that takes into account like heavier units. So, for example, if you had like an army of all Gabos and you had an Arachnarok queen or something, and you lost the queen, it would be a pretty substantial hit to your kind of army losses meter. So he is taking a lot of hits right now, and this Gorble who chased Kolek all the way off the battlefield is now back. So I have another full health Gorble, and despite the fact that he does have some anti-large and armor piercing here, it's not going to be enough. And you can see the 2 Gorbles getting in here doing some serious work. Of course, Morkur with his regeneration. Let's go ahead and see what his cap is. So he healed for about 1,600 HP, so he didn't do the most damage to Morkur, actually. And thankfully, Morkur was kind of able to hide behind some of his other troops and really sustain in that battle. So very well played to my opponent. Very cool army. I definitely like it. It's very diverse. The Chaos Marauders here, I'm not sure if I like them against the Beastmen. I guess they're not terrible if you're going with, like, you know, giant. If you're getting like a Shaggoth and, you know, Chosen, you kind of have to get some Chaos Marauders sometimes to get the unit density. But still, the aspiring champs, I like those. And honestly, I think if he had just gone with halberds and then Forsaken into secondary line, and you know, just Chaos Warriors with halberds, getting Forsaken, and then, you know, Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and kind of relatively similar elsewhere, I think I would have been in a lot of trouble because Forsaken are just so good here. Now, the meta pick to kind of defeat the Forsaken builds with Chaos is just to get Bestigors, and I honestly think Bestigors are a very safe bet. I used to not like them, but if you saturate them with some other units, I've had some decent success. But again, there's so many different builds at work and so many variables at play, so sometimes you just have to kind of guess. But anyways, very well played to my opponent, Union. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and hope you guys enjoyed that beast cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.